and about 80 miles from our starting point. We did not take any provisions for the trip, but we were amply provided for at all times and had very comfortable quarters. We arrived at our destination early in the afternoon of the 5th day, were greeted by a delegation of villagers and shown to comfortable quarters. We noted that the villagers treated Emal and Jas with the utmost reverence. We were told that Emal had never visited the village, but that Jas had been there before. The occasion of his first visit was in response to a call for help to rescue 3 villagers from the fierce snowmen that inhabit some of the wildest parts of the Himalayas. This present visit was in response to a similar call and also to minister to the sick who could not leave the village. These so-called snowmen are outcasts and renegades who have lived in the snow and ice regions of the mountains until they have developed a tribe that is able to live in the mountain fastnesses without contact with any form of civilization. Though not numerous, they are very fierce and warlike, and at times capture and torture those who are unfortunate enough to fall into their hands. It proved that 4 of the villagers had been captured by these wild snowmen. The villagers, being at their wits' end to know what to do, had sent out a message to get in touch with Jas, and he had come to the rescue, bringing Emal and us along. Of course, we were all excited, thinking we were to get sight of these wild people, whom we had heard of but supposed did not exist. We at first believed that a rescue party would be organized and we would be allowed to join. But these hopes were shattered when Emal announced that he and Jas would go alone and that they would go immediately. In a few moments they disappeared and did not return until the second evening, with the 4 captives, who told weird tales of their adventures and of the strange people that had captured them. It seems that these strange snow people go entirely naked, that their bodies have become covered with hair like that of a wild animal, and that they can withstand the intense cold of the mountain altitudes. They are said to move over the ground very swiftly. In fact, it is claimed that they are able to pursue and capture the wild animals that live in the region that they inhabit. These wild people called the masters, the men from the sun, and when the masters go among them for the prisoners, they do not resist. We were also told that the masters had made a number of attempts to reach these wild people, but these attempts had come to naught because of the fear in which the people held them. It is said that if the masters do go among them, the snowmen will not eat or sleep, but stay in the open night and day, so great is their fear. These people have lost all contact with civilization, even forgetting that they had ever contacted other races, or that they are the descendants from them. So far have they separated themselves from others. We were able to get Emal and Jas to say but little about this strange, wild tribe, nor could we influence them to take us to them. When we questioned, the only comment was, "They are God's children, the same as we are, only they have lived so long in hatred and fear of their fellow men, and they have so developed the hatred and fear faculty that they have isolated themselves from their fellow men to such an extent that they have completely forgotten they are descendants of the human family, and think themselves the wild creatures they appear to be. They have gone on in this way until they have even lost the instinct of the wild creatures, for the wild creature knows by instinct when a human being loves it, and it will respond to that love. All we can say is that man brings forth that which he gazes upon and separates himself from God and man, and in this way he can go lower than the animal. It would serve no purpose to take you among them. It would instead harm those people. We are in hopes someday to find someone among them who will be receptive to our teaching, and in this way reach them all. We were told that if we wished to make the attempt to see these strange people on our own initiative, we were at liberty to do so, that the masters could no doubt protect us from any harm, and if we should be taken prisoner, they could in all probability secure our release. We found that evening we were scheduled to leave the next day for a very ancient temple, about 35 miles from the village where we were then stopping. My 2 companions decided they would forego seeing the temple and try to get a closer view of the wild men. They attempted to influence 2 of the villagers to go with them, but in this they met flat refusal, for none of the villagers would leave the village so long as they thought the wild men were around. My friends decided to attempt it alone, so, after receiving instruction from Emal and Jast as to the trail and general direction, they strapped on their sidearms and made ready to start. Before they left, Emal and Jast had exacted a promise from them that they would shoot to kill only as a last resort. They may shoot to frighten as much as they please, but they must give their word that if they killed, it would be the last extremity. I was surprised that we even had a .45 Colt with us, as we had not carried firearms about us. I had discarded mine long ago and did not know where they were. It so happened that one of the coolies that helped to look after our wants had put 2 pistols in the luggage, and they had not been removed. Chapter 18. Emal, Jast, and I started out later in the day to go to the temple and arrived there the next day at 5:30 in the evening. We found 2 elderly men in charge, and I was made comfortable for the night. The temple is located on a high mountain peak. It's built of rough stone and is said to be over 12,000 years old. It is in a perfect state of preservation and repair. It is one of the first temples erected by the Siddha teachers, and was erected by them as a place where they could go and have perfect silence. The site could not have been better chosen. It is on the highest peak in that part of the mountains. The elevation above sea level is 10,900 feet straight up. At times it led over poles that were supported by ropes fastened to boulders above, then thrown over the cliff side, and these supported the poles that served as a trail. As we walked over these poles, I realized that we were at least 600 feet in midair. At other times we were obliged to climb pole ladders supported by ropes from above. The last ascent was perpendicular for about 300 feet and was accomplished wholly by pole ladders. When we arrived, I felt as if I were on top of the world. We were up before the sun the next morning. When I stepped out on the roof of that temple, I forgot all about the ascent of the night before. The temple was so situated at the edge of a bluff, when you looked out, you could see nothing for 3,000 feet below, and it seemed as if the whole temple were suspended in midair. I had considerable difficulty in persuading myself to believe otherwise. In the distance, we would see 3 mountains upon which I was told temples similar to this were located, but they were so distant I could not make out the temples with my field glasses. Emal said that one of the other parties should have reached the temple on the furthest mountain at the same time that we arrived here last evening, and that our chief was in that party. He said that if I wished to communicate with him, I might do so, as they were at the time standing on the roof of the temple, a good deal like we were doing. I took my notebook and wrote that I was standing on the roof of a temple 10,900 feet above sea level, and it seemed to me as if the temple were suspended in midair, that the time was exactly 4:55 a.m. by my watch, and the day was Saturday, August the 2nd. Emal read this message and stood silent a moment. Then the answer came. Time, 5:01 a.m. by my watch. Place, suspended in midair, 8,400 feet above sea level. Date, Saturday, August 2nd. View wonderful, but situation most remarkable.